So sorry for such an abrupt ending to part one, but here we are for part two. So, from me to you, story of the fallen angel, part two. So, after the townspeople come to the decision that they must shun this being for the things that had happened with the four people that he met on the walk home that evening, because the two that stood to the side condemned him by telling so many lies. They said that he approached them and he aggressed them and he had anger in his heart and he attacked them. Now, granted, one of the guys, he'll probably never be the same. And the other one, he was pretty roughed up pretty badly the same. But no one ever asked the side of the being. And honestly, if you would have seen the sight that they seen, you wouldn't have thought anything divine about this being. But you have to remember that being was fighting for his life. That being was attacked and would have died. So since nobody came to have his back, he did what he had to do to protect what he had. But no one wanted to hear his side. Nobody wanted to understand what happened that night. No one wanted the truth. And the ones that knew wanted to run and hide. But they didn't hide for long. They went right back to the town and spreading lies and rumors of what had happened, to where not even a week passed and it came another tragic. He had to run from what he had considered home for all these months, further into the woods. Now he was truly alone. He had to fend for his food. He had to mend his own clothes. He basically slept under the stars for the first good little minute, listening to the animals rustling in the trees. And sometimes at night it would get so dark and quiet. It would get kind of scary, but he kind of felt safer out there in the wilderness than back in that shack, surrounded by so many people who had already condemned him in so many ways and had already broken him and shattered his grace in a way. Because ever since that little being was put in the ground, he felt so much alone and he felt like there was absolutely no beauty in this realm. He didn't know how to interpret all these emotions. He really didn't even know what half these emotions were, and by chance, one individual took pity on him for that. Or maybe it was curiosity. I guess we'll never really know. But he approached the being in the wilderness one night when he was alone, and he actually ended up befriending the being before too long. The being was able to ask him questions and pick his brain to learn how to live in this terrain and to understand a little bit more why things are how they are. But it really didn't help his confusion for the thoughts that he now questioned is why, how can a brother and a sister condemn each other so tragically, look to the neighbor, point a finger, and then do the same thing? How can something that was created by the same hand of my Father, the same hand that created me, be so dark and so riddled with anger that there's no beauty? There's nothing to live, to even want to see, but to see tragedy in someone else's life because your hand has the right. How can you live like that? How can you have a mind and use it like that? This being didn't understand how so much power could be in something so little, in these little human beings, that now he had to realize he was just as brittle. After the attack with the 4 boys, him losing control of his emotions, but at the same time having to protect himself. He didn't know if he was excusing his actions or if he really, that's just how he felt. Was it an excuse to lash out, to release some kind of anger? Or was it a bit deeper than that? And it didn't matter because it was a stranger. See you at part 3.